All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. As Dak Prescott would say, here we go. Week 4, Giants, Cowboys, Thursday Night Football, Amazon Prime Video, prime time, MetLife Stadium, the Giants' second home game of the season, 0-1 so far, but coming off of a win in Cleveland on the road. The Dallas Cowboys, on the other hand, coming off of a loss at home to the Baltimore Ravens, where the Cowboys were home dogs going into that game and still can't get the job done. We've all heard about the Cowboys' problems with their run defense. And interestingly enough, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, all talking about how the defense needs to be more accountable, how guys need to prepare and execute the game plan that they see put forth by Mike Zimmer, Mike McCarthy. Interesting to hear Micah Parsons say that everyone's trying to be Superman, but what the players need to do is understand what's coming and simply read and react based on their preparation. Parsons, and I saw the Dallas Cowboys players even discussing how they knew Baltimore Ravens offensive tells and they understood based on offensive line alignments and how the linemen were setting for the Ravens, they could predict pretty well when they were going to throw the ball and run the ball based on what the coaches had told them, based on what they could see from how the linemen were setting on Baltimore. So essentially, they still knew when Lamar Jackson was dropping back to pass or was going to hand it off or take it himself, and they still were not making the plays. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson, a two-time MVP with Derrick Henry in the backfield, that's a different kind of running game, a different kind of skill set there. But Dallas has the same issues coming out of last year's playoff loss to the Green Bay Packers when Aaron Jones, who's now with the Minnesota Vikings, ran wild. And this presents an interesting element of this Giants-Cowboys matchup because the Giants' run game is so-so. The Giants average 105 rushing yards per game. That's 19th in the NFL. So the Cowboys, though, are allowing 185 yards per game on the ground, which is dead last in the league. So it'll be interesting to see what gives there and whether the Giants can command and dominate the line of scrimmage and offset some advantages for the Cowboys elsewhere, namely in the passing game. 269 yards per game in the air for Dak Prescott in Dallas. That is first in the NFL among NFL offenses. And obviously the Giants coming off a game where even though they won the game, Cleveland and Deshaun Watson, who did not play well at all, zeroed in very clearly on Deontay Banks, who is actually the top corner on the Giants secondary and on their defensive back depth chart. And they're also banged up back there with the Dory Jackson and Drew Phillips looking like they're not going to play. So the Giants' ability to get there with the pass rush and also offset that matchup, frankly, with just better play, more disciplined play, finding the ball when it's in the air in Banks' case. I talked to Deontay Banks today at his locker here on Tuesday, September 24th for the New York Daily News there at the Giants facility. He told me that he felt like he played like shit against Cleveland. He said that. That story is up now on the New York Daily News website. But he said like he felt like he was technically sound and he simply wasn't finding the ball when it was in the air. So he felt like a lot of what he did was good process, but the execution and finish was not there. You have to hope that that finishes there as he takes on the Cowboys. We'll talk about how they're going to defend CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys offense. But of course, Dallas has the advantage in recent history in this matchup. 13 of the last 14 games between the Cowboys and Giants have gone to Dallas, including the last 6. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll right now coming into this game 0-4 against Dallas, being outscored in those 4 games 140-53. Dak Prescott also 5-1 at MetLife Stadium in his career against the Giants. 28.5 points per game for Dallas in those 6 games. And Dak with a 12-2 record all time against the Giants with, I believe it's 28 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. And this is interesting too. Dak Prescott has won 12 consecutive starts against the Giants. He can become the 4th quarterback to register 13 consecutive wins against an opponent. That would join Pro Football Hall of Famers Bob Greasy, Steve Young, and Tom Brady. So if he wins this game, he will become the 4th quarterback ever to have 13 consecutive wins against the same opponent. We will get to all of your questions soon. First, want to tell you about our sponsors, beginning with MyBookie. MyBookie is celebrating its 10th year anniversary, and it's rolling out the red carpet for bettors. I have been giving you guys Pat's picks and my prop bet of the week. My prop hit this week, Wan'Dale Robinson over yards. We're 1-2 in each week so far in our 3-game picks. We're going to bounce back in a big way here and make sure we're coming out on top this season, working hard to do that for you. But if you're playing at MyBookie, you're going to love the perks that you get there. If you have a MyBookie account and you subscribe to the loyalty rewards program, MyBookie Plus, you will play more and earn more. You'll unlock exclusive giveaways, progress through the tiers, and be signed up for exclusive promotions, get cash back in your account. Whether you're betting underdogs, whether you like the prop bets that I do, if you're looking for those backdoor covers, or you like those big-time matchups, the primetime matchups like this Cowboys-Giants game, you want to go to MyBookie there to help you cash in on every single moment. Football season, make it a winning season with MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. And remember, the promo code Pat's Picks. Use that at the link in all of my social media. It's that link. You'll find it in my X account, P Leonard NYDN, on my YouTube profile, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, wherever you go. Click on that link, use the Pat's Picks promo code, and you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000, plus a $10 casino chip. Also brought to you here by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, right behind me here, as you see on the shelf. It is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code Talkin Ball 25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. And also, last but not least, brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. By the way, stay tuned. We will be doing Estate 98 trivia very shortly, so stay tuned for that. Estate 98 Coffee is an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go professionals and coffee drinkers on the go. It takes me less than 10 seconds to make an Estate 98 iced coffee. It's delicious. Only a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Like I said, Estate 98 trivia is coming up soon, so I'm going to get into some of your questions here, and then we will get to Estate 98 trivia. So get ready. Have your fingers ready to get on those keyboards, on your phone, on your computer, wherever you're watching, because whoever wins the Estate 98 trivia, who enters the question first, you are going to get a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee mailed directly to your house, P.O. Box, wherever you want it sent. Jacob was in here first, said smash that like button and that sub button for the best Giant beat writer in the business on your way in. Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you to the Believe Network for hosting us here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. Also, thank you to YouTube for this great platform, and to all of you tuning in right now. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your audio podcasts, first of all, everyone should be subscribed. Please rate and review on the audio podcasts on Spotify, Apple. All those ratings help us. But as Jacob said, please subscribe to the channel. If you listen on audio, please join us one of these times on the YouTube channel. The channel is PL on NFL. See my name there, just Pat Leonard. And we do the Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard on usually Monday and Thursday nights at halftime of those games. And then after every Giants home and road game, Talkin Ball post-game live. We will be live from MetLife Stadium after the Giants-Cowboys game on Thursday. So can't wait to join you from MetLife then. But subscribe and hit the like button while we are live here. Always helps us drive engagement and tells Giants fans out there who are scrolling through their shorts right now on YouTube, it tells them we are live. It brings them here into this community, and off we go. For those of you who don't know, I'm the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. I've been covering the Giants in the NFL since 2016. And as Michael is showing you all now, if you purchase a super chat or a super sticker, it will elevate your question or comment to the top of the chat and get it addressed or answered immediately. So off we go. Michael Maresca with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Michael. He says, Pat, any idea if Daniel Jones is sick? He sounded sick in his interview today. Hope he's good for Thursday's game. I do not know if he's sick. I did not catch that standing there talking to him. So he's no worse for wear. Of course, they would be obligated if he had an illness that was really going to hamper him in a significant way. You would end up having to put somebody A on the injury report, and B, Michael, to be honest, I know maybe this is giving teams too much credit, but it would be incumbent on the Giants to remove a player who is very ill, especially an important one who's in all those different meetings, to remove him a little bit on days where he doesn't have to be in indoor proximity to guys, right? So I don't know of anything there that's concerning. Was there for his interview, but we'll continue to watch that. Interesting that you picked up on that. I'll continue to look for that. You want to know, is Drew Phillips' injury getting better? Definitely don't expect him to play in this game, so he will not be an option in the slot in this game. So he and Adoree Jackson, based on how they have been non-participants the last 2 days, do not expect them to play in this game. Then you do have a long week until the Seattle game on the road the following Sunday. So maybe some hope there, but we don't have any diagnosis or exact timeline there. All right. Jacob says, Pat, thanks for this time. A few questions to start us off. Is Drew Phillips out for Thursday? I expect him to be, yes. If he's not playing, McLeod, Adoree, and Drew. Oh, if not McLeod, Adoree, and Drew Phillips playing, does Trey Hawkins get some run? And okay, so let's start there. So Nick McLeod, I expect to play in this game. He has been out the last 2 games with a knee injury. I expect Nick McLeod to play. It's trending that way. If he plays, I would expect him to be one of their options / solutions in the slot. I did talk to Deontay Banks about how they will deploy him in this game. He's not giving away game plan. He did say, listen, I've been traveling since I got here. And I said, well, not necessarily into the slot all the time. And he said, I'll do whatever they need me to do. He did go into the slot, I think 6 snaps, according to PFF, in Cleveland, following Amari Cooper around. Will be interesting to see if they travel him exclusively with CeeDee Lamb inside outside, because Lamb has split his time between inside and outside more in the slot than outside. I believe it's about 93 to 78 or so split from slot snaps to outside snaps, according to PFF. So that would be unusual for Banks to play that many snaps inside. So it's going to have to be a team effort, I would think, between him, Cordell Flott, Nick McLeod, and, Isaiah Simmons has been playing in the slot as well. I would not think, though, that they would match him up against CeeDee Lamb in pass coverage. And so that is how it looks at the moment, how it looks to be lining up. Will be interesting to see, though, how much do they spend it at different spots? Because if you don't travel Banks into the slot and then only McLeod is handling that slot receiver and it's McLeod versus CeeDee, do you just leave that? Or do you mix and match? Or do you send Banks in there, let Nick play outside? Because Nick is versatile and can play outside as well. You asked about Trey Hawkins. I would think, based on the numbers, that's a player that, as a draft pick, as a guy who they said they were excited about in the preseason, this would be a time, if there is a time, to move him up. But if you remember last week, they had Art Green up on the roster from the practice squad playing on defense rather than activating Trey Hawkins. So Duke Shelley could also be an option there as well. Duke Shelley, by the way, mentioned to me as I was talking to Deontay Banks, he actually grew up in the Atlanta area, and he and Darius Slayton played some football together when they were way younger, which I did not recognize. So I got to dig a little bit more in on with Slayton on that. But according to Duke Shelley, he was the man with the ball in his hands back in the day. on the offensive side of the ball. So definitely want to get into that with Duke. Let's see. Hunter says, I think we can take down the Cowboys Thursday. Here's to wishful thinking. I do want to get into how that can happen and why that can happen. And then also find your guys' temperature on whether you think it actually is a possibility here. Because so much of the recent history about Dallas is, here we go again, especially last season with the start 40-0 here at home. And then, everything just falling apart in Dallas as well as the Giants were in shambles. And as we know, in hindsight, how much was going wrong there, right? The last time they played the Cowboys, Shea Tierney was calling plays on offense in the second half. So that's where this went. That's how far and bad this has gotten. But Dallas is under more pressure than the Giants coming into this game, right? I mean, nobody expects really the Giants to win this game. I mean, everyone at NFL Network, when they put out their picks, picked the Browns to beat the Giants last week. There's not going to be many, if any, people picking the Giants to win this game. They do need to win it. Brian Daboll does need to win it to continue moving this momentum ahead and kind of turning this around and making this look like a kind of operation that they can be proud of in 2024. But everybody's looking at Dallas. All the eyes are on Dak Prescott and on Mike McCarthy and on Micah Parsons and on whether the bottom is going to fall out on quote unquote America's team. So all of the pressure is there. And America has watched as the Cowboys can't stop a nosebleed on defense, especially in the running game. David says, salute, Pat. David, great to see you. What's up, Mike? How you doing? Dave Z says, cheers, Pat. Always a pleasure to see you. Same with you, Dave. Thanks for being here. Antonio, great to see you. How you doing? Thanks for being here. Let's get into the Estate 98 trivia because now we have a good amount of people. A lot of the loyal followers are in here now. And we're rolling here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. So remember, this is the Estate 98 Giants trivia question of the night. The first person to enter the correct answer in the comments, so it's whatever answer shows up first to me, you will win a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. And what happens is after you win, you will direct message me on Instagram. My handle is PL on NFL. You will direct message me on Instagram an address that I can have Estate 98 ship out that free bottle to you. So here we go. Estate 98 trivia. Malik Nabers scored 2 touchdowns against the Cleveland Browns in week 3. He is the first rookie Giant to score 2 touchdowns in a game since who? Malik Nabers, 2 touchdowns on Sunday. He is the first rookie Giant to score 2 touchdowns in a game since who? Enter that player's name in the queue, and the first person to answer that correctly will win a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. And let's see. Okay, so Betch guesses Sterling Shepard. That is incorrect. Michael guesses Odell Beckham Jr. That is incorrect. So Mo, Solving, both said OBJ. No. Mal Murchison says Hakeem Nicks. Interesting guess. Incorrect. Hunter says Darius Slayton. No, that's incorrect. Randy Cook says Steve Smith. No, that is not correct. All good guesses, but no one has gotten it yet. This might be the biggest stump that I've presented yet. I'm stumping all of you. Usually you guys get it pretty quickly. Tonight, you're all stumped. Slayton, no. Cruz, no. Toomer, no. Manningham, no. Burris, no. Shockey, no. Dave Z's cracking me up, says Bobby Johnson. Mitchell says Ahmad. Bradshaw, no. Daniel Jones, no. No, so, well, Rick, Daniel Jones, like quarterbacks throwing and running for 4 touchdowns. No, that is not correct, though. Daniel did run for 2 touchdowns in Tampa, but that is not correct. Let's see. Jonathan, the question is, Malik Nabers scored 2 touchdowns for the Giants on Sunday. Who was the last Giants rookie to score 2 touchdowns in a game? Let's see. Mal says Evan Ingram. No. Betch says Larry Donnell. No. Mello says Kadarius Toney. No. We have Richie James guesses. No. Here's the question. The question is, Patrick, Malik Nabers scored 2 touchdowns in Cleveland. Okay. Who was the last Giants rookie to score 2 touchdowns in a game? Man, oh man, we're going on about 3 minutes here. No one has gotten it. Nope. David Wilson. No. All right. You guys can keep guessing. I'm going to start answering a couple questions and we'll get back to your answers and I'll see who got it. All right. I wanted to finish right up with Jacob's other question because you asked about 5-1. I do want to spread it out, Jacob, but I love that you're here early. Thanks for being here first. And you are such a loyal follower, and I want to make sure I answer all your questions. So you said, why is the offensive line so much improved from last year, and where is Evan Neal? Evan Neal is prepared to go in as the backup right tackle if and when called upon, but they're not playing him. Obviously, based on the mishandling of the injury last year, combined with his poor play, combined with mentally what happened last year with how he handled the pressure and the criticism, and really just a lack of reliability in a lot of ways, it became a situation where they decided they had to rely on somebody else, right? So behind the scenes, he's trying to stay ready. And if called upon, he's hoping to play better in that sense and in that spot. Why is the O-line so much improved from last year? Well, I would say this, Jacob. Their run blocking is not good enough. So I would reject the premise as a whole. Their run blocking is not very good. It was good in Washington, but overall, not good enough. But from a pass protection standpoint, I think, first of all, Daboll and as an offense, schematically, they are giving them more help. There's more 2 tight end sets. Chris Manhertz has helped as a blocker in there as well. He's pretty much like an extra lineman in there. So essentially, a lot of the times they look a lot like a 6-man protection unit. And if the running back is chipping or staying into block, it becomes a 7 or 6.5-man protection at all times, essentially. So there are more bodies in there. I think that they invested money there in veterans. So instead of having young players, say like Evan Neal and Josh Azudu and Marcus McKeithen last year, who didn't have a lot of reps under their belts and were also struggling with bad plays and trying to bounce back in game in big spots, you do have vets right now who have a little bit more experience with, even if they have a bad play, kind of just putting their heads down and playing the next one. But even in the Cleveland game, Jacob, that was not like, oh my God, the Giants are protecting Daniel Jones incredibly. Like a lot of their biggest plays in that game were screen passes, and Daboll really schemed the play calls away from the O-line's matchup against the Browns front and got the ball out quicker that way. But yes, it didn't all come down, right? The offense hasn't come down in flames and shambles in 3 weeks because of the O-line. So that's a step forward. But I still see an O-line that he is scheming very much to protect as well, which is part of coaching and offensive play calling. But I don't necessarily think I want to keep seeing it. That's what I would say. I want to keep seeing it. All right, let's see how the guesses are going down here. Let's see. I see some Mark Bavaro hints or guesses. Nope. Let's see. I am not giving any hints. No hints. Nope. Not doing it. All right. Where are my entertainers says, got to double CeeDee Lamb, have to double Parsons, start there. Interesting. I would say that I would do that in spurts or, alternating that off and on. I don't think you can necessarily commit to doubling CeeDee all the time because Dallas does have other weapons. To be honest, the weapon that scares me the most outside of CeeDee on the Dallas Cowboys offense is Jake Ferguson, the tight end, and really the tight end position there in general. Lunda Wells, the tight ends coach, former Giants assistant, does a great job with that group. And they also draft well at that position, in my opinion. You think of tight ends before too, like Dalton Schultz now with the Houston Texans, really good player who developed and produced there as well. And, Dallas just always seems to, when the Giants seem like they finally might have an answer for something on the outside or they adjust to that, Dallas loves to attack the inside. Dak loves to throw to the tight ends. I feel like always against the Giants, they get picked on with those tight ends, and Dak likes to go over the middle of the field. Doubling Parsons, yeah, I think those max protects and those, keeping a lot of players in is something the Giants have been doing already and something they will continue to do here. You're absolutely right, though, entertainers. Like, this is the kind of Dallas team they're talented, but they're also top heavy. And so you do have to make sure that those big guys don't beat you. Antonio says, do you expect Duke Shelley and Art Green to be promoted from the practice squad for this game with Ty Summers signing to the 53-man roster? So Summers has to sign to the 53 to play because he's out of elevations from the practice squad. So that one seems like an obvious move that is just a matter of time. And then it could be Duke Shelley and Art Green at corner getting elevated there for sure. Summers would then replace Jacob Johnson, who was waived from the active roster. It feels like they just keep yo-yoing this poor guy back and forth. Feel bad for him. But yeah, that's possible there, what you just described, Antonio, for sure. And I think, like I said, that could end up, is Trey Hawkins still out of the lineup because they're promoting guys like that? And then how does that reflect again on the GM's drafting? But obviously right now it's just about having the best team on the field and trying to put your best foot forward. By the way, loved Jason Pinnock's comment. When asked about Dallas beating them so frequently and winning 13 of the last 14, the safety for the Giants said that it reminds him of a joke he always had with his brother, with his older brother, saying like, "Hey, you could beat on me for 12 years, but in the 13th, I'm going to whoop your ass." So that's where they're coming from. Dexter Lawrence said that the not sacking Dak Prescott trend is going to change. Daniel Jones said we believe we can win. Dex said we believe we can win, and that's what we intend to do. So the Giants are talking confidently. I would say it still feels tense around the team. Feels like there's a lot of pressure on their ability to kind of dig themselves out of this early hole. Brian Daboll talking a lot about how often the coaches have been working and being there in the building right now, trying to get this going on the short week. So it feels tense, feels big, feels like the Giants are putting everything into this and they understand the stakes here. Let's see. Do you expect Eric Gray to continue handling kickoffs as the returner, says Antonio. Antonio, I don't know this for sure. Like I'm not sitting here telling you directly to your face. I know Eric Gray is not returning kicks, but I have to imagine, and I do believe that they well enough understand at this point that he can't be back there anymore. Teams are kicking it directly to him. And after that fumble, I mean, let's just face it. The NFL calls this the dynamic kickoff. In the Giants building, they might as well start calling it the catastrophic kickoff because in week 2, it got your kicker hurt and you gave up a 98-yard touchdown. You got lucky they called a hold to bring it back as you kicked off. And then in week 3 in Cleveland, you receive the opening kick and Eric Gray fumbles and Cleveland scores on their first play from scrimmage. So I think it's fair to say if the Giants have their opening kickoff, you need to boot it out of the back of the end zone and just let Dallas take over on offense. And if you're receiving, I think you need to change your personnel on the kickoff there. Is it Amir Smith-Marset, the new punt returner they brought in? Is it a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson instead, who's starting to show some jump and some juice? That'll remains to be seen. Let's see. Steven said, doesn't Daboll's lackadaisical attitude towards Singletary's fumbles really show why they're fumbling in the first place? Steven, that's a fair point. You do want to coach it out of somebody. You also want to hold everyone equally accountable. I do think Daboll he just loves playing the game of, I'm not going to give you anything. And so that's where he goes with that. He doesn't want to basically reveal anything. He thinks everything's competitive advantage, So, that's where he comes from, I think, with that. Like, it's not like they're not correcting it internally, but when he's talking to the media and he's talking to the fans, he doesn't want to sound like he's criticizing or critiquing a player. Now, I personally disagree with that in a lot of ways, as far as, you know, you're the coach. You're not players' friend. You know what I mean? Like you can serve as somebody who treats them as a human, man to man, and you do want to be that person to the players, right? But you're their head coach. And so, yes, you do have to coach it out of that player. And you also have to not play a guy who's going to continue hurting the team with turnovers, right? At a certain point, you need to demote a player who is hurting your team with those giveaways. I have said this since week one. I'll say it again. Tyrone Tracy Jr., I think, deserves more snaps, more reps. And I think I would expect him to continue to get worked in. That's what I would expect. I see somebody with the right answer to our trivia question, and it is. So the question was, Malik Nabers is the first Giants rookie to score 2 touchdowns in a game since. And it looks like we have a back-to-back winner. Hunter Keller says Caden Smith. I do not see anyone else above Hunter saying Caden Smith. Correct me if I am wrong about the chat, but I did not see a Caden Smith joke come in. Or I did not see a Caden Smith guess come in prior to that. Hunter, congratulations. Caden Smith, the former Giants tight end, he had 2 touchdowns on December 22nd, 2019 at Washington. Hunter, great work. Great job. That was by far our most difficult State 98 trivia question so far. Hunter, you already have one on the way. So it looks like 2 bottles are headed to Hunter Keller. Hunter, congratulations and well done on that trivia question there. But yeah, Stephen, back to your question. It's not like they're not coaching it, but you do want to nip it in the bud and show that there's zero tolerance here, right? Dave Z says the Giants need to run the ball right at the Cowboys, eliminate that pass rush and sideline to sideline speed that they have. Minimize the total possessions in the game by controlling the clock. I think that's a really good point. Let's see. Danny Dudd says, Pat, how much does the team miss Saquon? I especially am interested in the locker room. Who is the leader on offense? The leader is Daniel Jones. And also, it does seem like the O-line is veteran enough that they police themselves maybe better than last year's did, if that makes sense, from the standpoint of having enough veterans there, plus John Michael Schmitz, who's a mature young player. I think that the makeup of the O-line and Daniel Jones is kind of the leadership element there. And that should be, it needs to be. And I don't mean the O-line is leading by talking or standing up in meetings. I just mean that, Van Roten and Runyon and Thomas specifically, those guys, and then Illuminor's played a lot of football too, but those guys, and I'm not saying every snap's perfect or anything like that, but I'm saying that just their overall makeup of how they approach every day, I think is a professional one. So, that's good to see. And I think that's it. That's the element you're looking for, but it doesn't replicate the type of leadership you're asking about with Saquon. And, it remains true. Like all of the issues they had with certain players being frustrated with playing time and, different, reports and my comments, right, about, let's see, what was going on in the locker room, the fact that it was a tenuous situation. It felt too tense that, a huge losing streak could lead to Daboll losing his job, right, going into the Cleveland game. All the issues behind the scenes of those kind of leadership questions, I still think they need to be answered over time consistently, right? It's a really good sign that they were able to persevere in Cleveland. But I do think what you're looking for still needs to come together. So I totally agree with you there. I do think they miss Saquon, especially listen, when they won in Cleveland, there were guys like Brian Burns, Malik Nabers, Jason Pinnock, Dexter Lawrence, Bobby Okereke, Darius Slayton, or, not Darius Slayton in that game, but Wan'Dale Robinson. There were guys standing up, Devin Singletary, Daniel Jones, answering questions, being not just accountable, but, sharing insight into what happened in the game, how the team was feeling, what the team's internal message was. and coming forth and presenting themselves in a leadership manner. Now, what you want to see, though, is who does that when the team loses. That is what stands out the most. And, Saquon was really good at that. Eli Manning is the best, ever really for the Giants as far as in recent years of that accountability and standing there the day after a loss and then after a loss after the game in the locker room or at the podium and taking those bullets. That was something that Saquon did for them, he knew how to do it and he had the clout to do it. And Dexter Lawrence has become kind of the team leader, but I still think it's a tough thing for him. He does not love the public element of it, the conversation. Today he made an allusion. Somebody asked him if he felt like Sunday in Cleveland was one of his best games. And he said, you guys keep asking me these questions. And then he kind of stopped himself. It was almost like he was wary of where the question was going instead of just answering it. That type of stuff, you hope that over time that trust continues to build. And then guys are more comfortable kind of standing in those shoes and being the type of leader that you're talking about with Saquon. But yeah, I mean, listen, Saquon could be in the MVP, really one of the MVP candidates if he keeps this up. The Giants obviously excited about what Nabers did for them in Cleveland, but they do need to be able to run the ball better than they did as well. So that continues to be a really interesting storyline alongside the Giants season. Betch says, what's good, Pat? You've been doing great content lately. Thank you so much, Betch. I've had a lot of help from great guests and here on the Believe Network, and also just you guys really helping me here, create a great community and a great forum to bring you insight and information that I have on the New York Giants and on the NFL. And yeah, let's get back to your questions, but I am super grateful anytime somebody says that type of stuff. Lane says, let's go Giants. Tim says the Giants must beat the Cowboys on Thursday night or else we're history. Tim, that's an interesting point that you make, because obviously it's only week 4, we would say, right? But you're right. The stakes are super high in the sense that the loser of this game, Cowboys or Giants, slips to last place in the NFC East. And beating Cleveland is great. But I told you guys this before, Chris Manhertz, the tight end, who I really love his perspective on the NFL and just on the season. He was the one saying that we have to get a result. We have to move the line of scrimmage in the run game, whatever it is. And then we have to do it again and again and again and again. And that's what the good teams do. That's what the great teams do. So the Giants understand that the way for them to have a good season is to build on what they just showed well, especially in the first half offensively in Cleveland and as a defense in that game. Lane wants to know, can the Giants win on Thursday night? Lane, I think they can. I think the way that they can do it is they have to run the ball they have to run the ball more like they ran against Washington than the way they ran it against Minnesota or Cleveland. If they're running the ball the way they did against Washington, they have a chance to win the game. That takes pressure off Daniel Jones. That takes Micah Parsons out of obvious and frequent pass rushes, right? And this is why, to me, one of my keys to the game, and I know everybody wants to say, hey, we have a shot no matter what for 4 quarters. But to me, one of the keys to this game is scoring the first touchdown. I feel like for the Giants, now they did come back and beat the Browns after the Browns scored the first touchdown in Cleveland. But I think Dallas, the way they are built, right, the way their pass rush can tee off if the Giants are down and throwing, that's a recipe for disaster. You can't run the ball maybe as well. Let's say the Cowboys go up 10 points and the Giants get taken out of the type of run calls that they want to make and the steady progressions down the field that they're looking for, right? You don't want that stuff. You want to be able to control the game and control how the game flows. And the Giants need to take an early lead, in my opinion, to do that. And they need to run the ball well. I think, as Dave mentioned earlier, I do see that as a key. One of the other keys is, and I talked to Deontay Banks about this today, one of the keys is in the passing game, Deontay Banks got attacked directly and frequently and effectively by the Cleveland Browns last week. And Banks is well aware that can be something that can shake a player's confidence. He told me he's not shaken. He says, I stay with it. He said, I'm always confident, not putting my head down. He said, one of the reasons is that even though he said he played like shit, he told me that, he said that his technique was solid in a lot of areas playing outside of not finding the ball. Also, interesting thing he told me, he said that on the slant touchdown to Amari Cooper, he said that that play was the one bad play. And that doesn't mean the one play, like obviously he wanted different results on the other ones. But he meant that that was one play where he just didn't like how he played it at all. And he wishes he could do completely over, essentially. Because he said what happened was, if you watch the film of that play, he said, so Amari Cooper comes out and sets. When the ball gets snapped, you watch in the backfield, Deshaun Watson does a play action fake and then turns to throw. So Cooper starts kind of walking his route out as if it's a run, where he's going to walk out a little and then set if he has to block Deontay Banks. So Banks said he lulled me to sleep. He lulled him to sleep by walking out to him. He said when he walked out to him a little bit, Banks peeked into the backfield. And the second he peeked, Cooper did the quick, shuffle and planted his foot and ran the slant. So Banks wasn't even ready for the slant. He anticipated something incorrectly. And so that was different than the slant against Justin Jefferson, which was Banks played the slant. He saw the slant coming and Jefferson just won it and got the ball anyway. So he doesn't see that as the same thing, but that was what happened on that play. So hopefully that's some good insight from the locker room for you guys here on Talkin Ball Live. But FYI, 7 completions, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns against Banks in that game. He knows he needs to bounce back. And that secondary and that defense needs to bounce back. Dexter Lawrence actually said today, he said the pass rush needs to get there, but he said that Dak Prescott is a quick hitter. He likes to drop back, plant his foot, and throw. Dallas likes to attack the Giants that way. They've done that for years, and so that's what they're anticipating. And so they need the coverage to hold up for those first couple seconds. And that's on Shane Bowen too. Because yes, he threw some pressure at Cleveland that they weren't anticipating. I can promise you Mike McCarthy will have a better offensive game plan than what Cleveland did. So Shane Bowen is going to have to, not play those easy zones for Dak to hit those windows. And then when they play man, have the right matchups. And who was it? Michael or somebody said earlier, mix in some double teams of CeeDee and change it up. Because if Dak Prescott knows what he's looking at, it's curtains for the Giants. You do have to move his eyes and confuse him and get him off his spot and allow the pass rush to get there as well. Another key to this game, before I get back into the queue here, and thank you for all the questions. Don't see a lot of super chats rolling in as much as we've had in previous chats recently, but if you want to purchase a super chat or super sticker, that will elevate your comment or question to the top of the thread. So I'll still go through the chat, answer all the questions there, but just in case if somebody's waiting too long for their own liking, doesn't have enough time, if you purchase a super chat or super sticker, it'll go to the top of the queue. But here's another key to this game, okay? Brandon Aubrey, the Dallas Cowboys kicker, 10 for 10 this season, and he is 5 for 5 already in 3 weeks from 50 yards or further. He's hit a 57-yarder, a 50-yarder, a 52-yarder, a 65-yarder, and a 51-yarder. He also has hit from 46 and 48, okay? So now I know he kicks well in their building especially, but this is a guy who can make one essentially from anywhere. Former Notre Dame standout soccer player, go Irish. And so the reason this is a key is not only because that's 3 points every time he's making one for the Cowboys. It's also key because the Giants, their kicker has not made a field goal yet for them. Greg Joseph missed the only field goal attempt he took last game from 48 yards, and he missed it badly, shanking it and pushing it over to the right. Now, he is a kicker who's been in this league. He's made kicks. He made a kick for Minnesota to beat the Giants on the road in Minnesota a couple years ago. So we've seen him make kicks. He's a vet. He's capable of making kicks, but without Graham Gano, you don't feel like this is an even matchup here between the Cowboys and the Giants when it comes to their field goal kickers, their specialists there, and their special teams as a whole, especially when you think about Kevontae Turpin and the return game for the Cowboys. Like the way that the Giants special teams has been costing the Giants this season, you could even say that the Cowboys might have the kind of special teams that can do the Giants in before the offense and defense even really get going. If you think about the 40-0 loss last year right? What was the big play? It was the block field goal where Andrew Thomas gets hurt, Graham Gano gets banged up, right? So that was a big play in that first game. The Giants really need to be buttoned up on special teams. Dave Z says, I see Nabers being the offensive leader sooner rather than later. He oozes confidence and accountability. I agree with that. I mean, he's still only 21 years old. So the Giants, I think, would much rather him just keep making great plays and not like put a burden on him to be it. But totally, Dave, lead by example right now and grow into it for sure. Big Blue Steph says, Daniel Jones did sound a little sick and his nose is red. Interesting. NY Assassin says, I don't think the Giants can do it. Lane says, how do you feel about Malik Nabers? How do I feel about Malik Nabers? I feel like he's a pleasure to watch, and I'm excited to see him play again. You know, I yelled out, holy shit, when he made that first touchdown catch, leaping and contorting his body acrobatically in Cleveland to score and tap his toes in and all that. That was a great catch. Also, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, Benny Fowler and I do a podcast here on Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. It's called First Down with Benny Fowler. We do it every week, recapping the previous Sunday's games. And Benny pointed out right away that Malik Nabers has great hands. And obviously you want that with great receivers, but Benny was pointing out that a lot of good receivers, even some great receivers, use their bodies a lot to catch the ball. And he noted and saw watching that game as a former NFL receiver and a Super Bowl champion. He said, like, Malik catches with his hands. He goes up and yanks it down with his hands. He grabs it, plucks it out of the air, all hands, strong hands, right? And you saw him rip the ball from Martin Emerson Jr. there on the sideline as well. So, those are some of the things that's standing out. But obviously setting records, NFL records in week 3 of your rookie season, being the first NFL rookie ever to have 20 catches or more and 3 touchdowns in your first 3 games. I mean, that's already where we are. And he's up there among the league leaders in stats already for wide receivers as a whole. So excited about him. I agree. He sounds accountable and I enjoyed talking to him and working with him so far and looking forward to continue working with him, but also watching him. Lane says, do you start Daniel Jones on Thursday night? I guess you're asking about fantasy football, Lane. If you're asking about like his health, I know nothing about him being sick other than what you guys are pointing out. So I hadn't heard anything about that. Let's see. Danny Dudd says, Daniel Jones has never beaten the Cowboys with Dak. Right. So the Giants have lost 13 of the last 14. That starts at the first meeting of 2017 and goes all the way through 2023. Their only win was came under Joe Judge. It was a 23-19 win at the end of the 2020 season. So that's their only win during that stretch. And by the way, do you guys remember who the quarterback was for that game when Joe Judge and the Giants beat the Dallas Cowboys at MetLife Stadium? And if you remember correctly, Wayne Gallman recovered a fumble with his butt in that game. So that was memorable, to say the least. I'll tell you, by the way, the quarterback in that game was Andy Dalton for the Dallas Cowboys. He is now slinging it for the Carolina Panthers. A little hot here. Got to take this sweatshirt off real quick. As we roll along here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, almost 50 minutes in, great chat, great vibes. Vibes are high right now. Giants victory in Cleveland. Big time, prime time matchup with the Dallas Cowboys on deck coming up Thursday night at MetLife Stadium. Really fascinating matchup here because the Cowboys have the 6th ranked offense in the NFL, 25.7 points per game, and Giants are all the way down at 29th at 15 points per game. But the Giants only allowing as a defense 21.3 to opponents. That's 18th in the league. And Dallas is allowing almost 30 points a game to opponents, 29.7 points per game. That is 30th in the NFL. So a really kind of all over the map stats wise so far, 3 weeks in for these teams. And, an interesting element about it too, and I'll get right back into the question queue, is how volatile the NFC East coaching carousel is based on these results throughout this season. Because you have Bill Belichick there, right, waiting in the wings for a potential opening. You have other, obviously, young coaches up and coming looking for jobs next year. And then you have Nick Sirianni, Brian Dable, Mike McCarthy. And these are all guys in situations where the pressure's on. They have to show progress. They have to show results and different levels of expectations and accountability from their ownerships. But wins and losses in these games matter so much in the grand scheme of evaluating those guys and how they're going to be judged internally and externally when the season comes to an end based on how their team performs. You have Washington now, of course, with Jaden Daniels, definitely taking away. If Malik Nabers was going to win Rookie of the Week, he said he's not going to now. It's a wrap. It's going to Jaden Daniels in Washington. But, I'm glad I didn't bet that game, right? I hope no one else did as well, because them taking down the Bengals, Washington hasn't punted now for 2 straight weeks. But if you're Dable, McCarthy, Sirianni, you got to keep your foot on the gas, right? Because the dynamic of this division is starting to change. You have a new quarterback, right? Washington's got a new operation there. So you really have to start making some headway, showing some progress. Mo says, for all the Daniel Jones haters, he is getting better, and I see him finishing that 4-year contract he signed. Interesting. That would be a great thing if he were playing well enough to actually do and fulfill what you just said, which was play through that full contract. Lane says, can the Giants beat the Cowboys 40-39? Wow, that is a very high score prediction. Are the Cowboys bad enough that they're going to give up 40 points to a team averaging 15 a game? Hard for me to say. I can't predict that, Lane. Especially, I know there's some rain in the forecast. I don't think it's raining during the game, though. Let me double check the forecast here. I know the Giants' own forecast didn't have it raining at the stadium. Let's see. Thursday, chance of precipitation. Okay, so it basically hovers around like 25%. It goes up a little bit around 7 or 8 or so, but never goes up to 40%. So it's going to be humid, I think, in that night on Thursday night for the game, but not raining. But I do think it's going to be. I think the Giants scoring 40 points when they're averaging 15, even with Dallas's defense the way they've been playing. I think that's a lot. I think that would be difficult to do. Ashley says, why are there 2 games on Monday night at the same time? You figured the NFL would be smart enough to stagger the games. Ashley, I think the reason is because these rights holders like NBC or, ESPN, Disney, etc., when they're paying for these rights, they're also purchasing a certain amount of primetime spots and games and in these different packages. And I believe it's related to, the NFL getting a certain price and then for that price, giving these networks the amount of primetime games they're looking for in those packages. And so it means an extra, Monday nighter here and there. Do you like it or not like it? I know I've talked to some people who said that they prefer just the one game. Like it's cool for opening weekend and for week 1 when they do it like with the kickoff, but they'd rather just the one. But curious what you think there. Let's see. Lane, after this game, the Giants play the Seattle Seahawks on the road in Seattle. So that's who they play there. Let's see. Eric says, 1 win and the tune has changed. Makes me feel bad for having my eyes set on Cam Ward. Love to see Daniel Jones ball, though. Eric, I would say it's only fair to give the Giants credit for getting the result and the victory, and for like Dable out coaching Jim Schwartz in the first half of that game and getting points on the board, and the defense adjusting and playing well enough to win a game and really hold the Giants down and hold the fort at the end when the offense and the game management was really short circuiting. So, I think they do deserve credit for that and for making some headway, but like you say, feel bad for having my eyes set on Cam Ward. No, don't feel bad at all. I mean, Eric, here's how you have to think about it. Joe Shane and the Giants scouting office, they're all out on the road scouting the quarterbacks you're talking about before the Giants season even starts. They're at these games. You saw it yourself on that Chicago Bears Hard Knocks. Shane talking to Ryan Poles about, hey, it must be nice to not have to be scouting a quarterback right now, right? So, but this is the business. Like it's not personal, Sonny. It's business, right? This is the way it works. So you shouldn't feel bad because the Daniel Jones's own organization is planning for the day he's not here, right? Even with a win last week, they're not saying, oh, we're going to stop scouting quarterbacks now. That's one game, but they deserve the optimistic reflection and the credit given to their successes, their nice moves, their good decisions, their prudent assignments, the way that they prepared for and executed in key moments. All of that needs to be pointed out and celebrated. But as I was getting at, the Giants know they need to back it up. That's their tone. That's how they're talking. Some guys have said that directly to me, that idea, like we know that this means something if we do it again, if we back it up, if we, right? Like they understand that losing this puts you in last place at 1-3 in the division alone, right? And it sends you then to Seattle on the road, which is a tough place for anyone to win. And the Giants have really had trouble with this. Is a new coach in Seattle, but they've really had a lot of trouble with this version roster wise of Seattle. And Seattle looks good so far as well. Hey, we got a super chat rolling in. I was getting thirsty in this deserted wilderness for a super chat. And Joe checks in, says, do you think the Giants will win? I don't expect them to, but I want to see us put up a fight. I think the game will come down to our O-line versus Dallas's D-line. If we can control the line, we can run the ball. Yeah, Joe, I think in addition to getting on the board early and being able to control the game's flow with an early touchdown, I think that also then sets you up to try to impose your will in the way that you're discussing. And I totally agree with you that if the Giants dominate the line, like again, if they run the ball the way they ran against Washington, okay, if they run the ball like they ran the ball against Washington, then they have a chance to win this game because you're keeping Dak Prescott off the field. You're forcing Micah Parsons to stop the run instead of rush the passer, which is what he wants to do and what he's best at. It all hopefully falls into place. I think Tyrone Tracy needs to be a key part of this. I might go right back to Tyrone Tracy with a recommendation on, carries, yards, etc. We'll see about that, but yeah, it wouldn't hurt to play the Tyrone Tracy props. I got to check what they look like on my bookie right now, but I'm glad you brought this up, Joe, because I forgot to mention one of my biggest keys to this game. And I'm going to get to that right after I remind you of MyBookie, our sponsor here, mybookie.ag. So MyBookie is the place where you want to go to win this NFL season. They're celebrating their 10th year anniversary. They're rolling out the red carpet for bettors. They have a promo code now specific for Talkin Ball. It's called Pat's Picks, PATSPICKS. If you use the Pat's Picks promo code at the link on my bio and in my profile on all of my social accounts. So that means TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, X, everywhere. I'm PL on NFL, and on X, I am P Leonard NYDN. If you go to those accounts and you click the link and you enter the promo code Pat's Picks on the cashier page as you are making your first deposit, you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000. Plus, you'll get a $10 casino chip. So whether you bet the underdogs, whether you're already a MyBookie member and you want to sign up for their new loyalty rewards program, MyBookie Plus, make this the place you win this NFL season. Go to MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere this football season. MyBookie, MyBookie Plus, and Pat's Picks, the promo code. We are also sponsored by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink right here over my shoulder. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. So that's right here, TalkinBall25 or the QR code. Access it now. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. And remember, that's go to boomchaga.com. Go to subscribe and save option. Put that one bag in the cart, subscribe and save. So you're subscribing and buying that with that Talkin Ball 25 code to get the discount. And then if you don't want to stay subscribed, you can just cancel it. No penalty, no obligations. It just helps you get the deal. And if you want to continue supporting Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, the best way to do it is to open an account on MyBookie and to buy one bag of Boom Chaga. Try it out, see if you like it. And finally, Estate 98 coffee. It's an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. Takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee. Only a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Hunter Keller won another bottle of it tonight. Way to go, Hunter. Good for you. Good job getting our trivia question. For those of you who just checked in, the trivia question today was Malik Nabers scored 2 touchdowns on Sunday. Who was the first Giants rookie, or who was the last Giants rookie to score 2 touchdowns in a game? The trivia question answer, after many people got it wrong, was Caden Smith, the former Giants tight end, December 22nd, 2019 against Washington. All right. Let's get into the queue. More questions here. Hunter says, I look at it as the Cowboys are going to bring their best. Can't lose in division when boats are sinking. Yep, pressure's on. They need to. Patrick says the Giants cannot be flat. They must play hard with violent urgency. You're right, Patrick. And that brings me to the point that I told you I was going to make coming out of those ad reads. And that is this. One of the top storylines of this game is how the Giants get the crowd on their side and manage the game early in order to keep the fans believing. Because the fan base in week 1 in that game against the Minnesota Vikings turned very quickly, very hard, and became disgusted with the product they saw on the field and with the quarterback in particular, right? There was a section chanting for Tommy DeVito in the second quarter. There were some boos and groans in the first quarter early after the first drive. And the Giants players heard it. They felt it. It definitely affected the way they were not really able to strongly finish the game. And remember, Dexter Lawrence after that game said he did not respect how the fans were booing. And so the Giants have given the fans something to cheer about now with a victory over the Cleveland Browns. They're coming back home. They're looking for the kind of support that home field provides. Brian Daboll did his best to give favor to the fans by saying that he thought that the Giants fans who traveled on the road were very supportive in both Washington and Cleveland. But we all know that if Dallas comes out and starts running the Giants out of the building in the first quarter, this can get really ugly. And to Eric's point, the tone changes in a hurry. Imagine how quickly it will change back if that happens. So, it's not only about winning the game, but to get to that point, the Giants need to establish and set a tone right away to make sure the crowd understands that the right version of the Giants is here to play. And that is the type of stuff that speaks so loudly to ownership and to the organization about the type of operation that they are running. All right. Let's see. Ezeki says, The 2 Mondays include a flex game where a game was supposed to be on Sunday, but they anticipate the original Thursday game to not be good, so they move another one to Thursday. I think you mean to Monday, but yeah, you're right. Part of that kind of schedule rubric and those permutations there. Let's see. Gary says, "What's up, Pat? Any idea why we are working out tight ends?" Yes. So Brian Dable, I asked Brian Dable that. He said, so they placed Lawrence Cager, who was on their practice squad, on injured reserve. Interesting. Lawrence Cager had been, trying to work through a groin injury and had been on the side, had been working, doing some things, and then practicing. And then he was backed off at practice. Remember, asked him if everything was okay, and he said yes, but it turned out everything was not okay. Definitely, if whether it was a setback or whether he just wasn't getting better, placing him on injured reserve. And they have signed Joel Wilson, who was one of the 4 tight ends they worked out. This guy was most recently on the Packers, been on a couple other teams, I think the Bills and the Saints, has not played in an NFL game. Dable said basically that, they need him on the scout team. They need bodies, and including at that position where these guys take a lot of beating and it's a physical position. They need guys they need guys on the depth chart in case people go down. And they also need to be able to practice at that position with multiple players and in heavy tight end sets and formations. And with Cager out, they needed a body at that spot. I did ask him what he thought of their current tight ends and how they're playing. He said he thinks they're playing good, I think was the word that he used initially. I think you guys know as well as I do that. And he talked something about them not being receiving options, but saying, yeah, we talked about this already. They're in blocking. But I wasn't talking about them as receivers. I mean, you do need them to be helpful and better receivers as well. Theo Johnson in the red zone. And in general, just a tight end position, you want them to be weapons. But the concern out of the last game was, holding penalties, right? Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, both getting called for holds that called back, positive gains. So that's more what I'm looking at. Jackson says, how would you describe your relationship with Brian Dable compared to the rest of the beat? It seems like he usually gets more annoyed with your questions. It has seemed that way in the last week or so, I would say, Jackson. I agree with you. I think I would characterize it as a professional relationship. I do think that this Giants regime, as much as any, if not more, pays very close attention to what is written and what is said. And, I personally think that some of their time could be spent more efficiently elsewhere because I have nothing to do with whether this Giants team wins or loses. I mean, I was sitting there in Cleveland when they won a game, writing a story going into the game about all the pressure on them and what could happen if they continue to lose, and they still won. None of my work impacts what happens on the field. The closest thing to that would be like, when the Giants cut DeAndre Baker, after I reported all of that information about what had happened off the field. Like, that's one way, I guess, that a reporter could quote unquote affect the product on the field, but obviously don't have anything to do with what happens on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays, other than just watching it play out and then trying to find out what happened or giving my analysis of what happened, and that combination of that to make sure you guys get as full a picture as possible of the team. But Jackson, I would agree with that. It does seem like I'm getting some snips or some looks, not just from that one press conference, but in general. But listen, that comes with the job. I mean, first of all, when losing happens, that just happens in general. That starts in general. Also, I'm not the only one that's happened to with Brian Dable. So, he's called out different people in the last week. He corrected somebody else today and interrupted a question. So, I think really just losing brings those types of interactions to a more contentious place, probably. But I would characterize it as a professional relationship. That's what I would say from my vantage point. Tommy says health and wealth to all. Right back at you, Tommy. By the way, not for nothing, but just something I thought of as we're sitting here talking about Dable and coaches and the carousel. Doug Peterson seems like he could be in trouble in Jacksonville, right? I mean, not only because the Jaguars aren't winning, And not only because it was kind of a no-show there in Buffalo, but, really because that, especially on the defensive side of the ball, like, first of all, Trevor Lawrence needs to be developing more and needs to be a better quarterback. And that's Doug's MO. And Doug's a very good quarterback coach, but Trevor Lawrence not looking like a player, like the number one overall pick people thought he was going to continue blossoming into. And then on the defensive end, though, that was what was most concerning to me. And I know Josh Allen is a great player, and I know the Buffalo Bills are a good team, but the way that it just seemed like the Bills did whatever they wanted, and they really didn't face much resistance, in my opinion. That is where you start losing teams, right? When you start saying, "Wait, was our defense giving their all, or was our defensive plan, you know, accounting for anything that Buffalo does correctly?" Like, that's where you really start questioning kind of the underpinnings and the foundation of what's going on. Justin, the plan in the secondary with Jackson and Phillips likely out. Probably. Well, I know Nick McLeod is trending towards playing. I expect him to play in this game. So I think Flott, McLeod, and Banks in some form. Only question is whether Banks travels into the slot with CeeDee or whether he stays outside and they kind of switch off CeeDee depending on where he moves, because he's really split his snaps between the two. But those are the top three I would expect. We talked about Art Green already being elevated last week. Duke Shelley's an option to also get elevated this week if Trey Hawkins isn't going up. Trey Hawkins obviously on the roster, but got elevated over last week. Green was elevated over him on the practice squad onto the active roster on game day rather than playing Trey Hawkins, the draft pick. Tommy says Giants have to. Also Isaiah Simmons is there as well in the mix, but I think you need to use him situationally with on the running backs, right, and maybe even the tight ends here and there, but probably primarily the running backs in pass coverage and also as a blitzer. And he can play in the slot, but it depends on who's in the slot too. Dak will be better at attacking weaknesses and guys, let's say, out of position than Deshaun Watson was before, for sure. Tommy says the Giants have to steadily and consistently improve, continuously building on each rep with no setbacks. Situational football awareness and play calling is everything, all hustle and no luck. I love it, Tommy. Great breakdown. You got me fired up. That sounded like a good pregame speech. Patrick says, will Isaiah Simmons be a DB? Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of just answered that, but yes, I think he'll be in the mix, but you have to be careful with, you're not having Isaiah Simmons block, guard a wide receiver. Like, that's just not what you can be doing consistently. Like, especially at a game like a team like the Dallas Cowboys has to be used more situationally and smartly than that. By the way, while we're talking about the Giants defense, here's an interesting stat according to NFL, the ESPN stats and info. So Deshaun Watson was pressured by the Giants on 36% of his dropbacks. Okay. For the 9th time that he's faced pressure on at least 35% of his dropbacks since joining the Browns in 2022. He had little success when pressured by the Giants Sunday. He completed only one pass. Therefore, listen to this stat. Deshaun Watson had more sacks, 8, than he had passing yards, 7, when he was under pressure Sunday against the Giants. So while under pressure against the Giants, Deshaun Watson, 7 passing yards, 8 sacks. Quite a stat there. 1 for 7, 7 passing yards, 2 scrambles, a fumble, and 8 sacks. The Giants' 8 sacks of Watson also were their most in a game since having 8 against the Tennessee Titans in Week 14 of 2014. So that was the most Giant sacks in a game as a team since I've been on the beat. Flipping over to the other side, another good stat from ESPN Stats and Info. Daniel Jones was 20 of 23 for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns on passes thrown 5 or fewer. Let's see. So wait, here's the stat. I didn't read that correctly. So he completed 23 of his 34 passing attempts, 5 or fewer air yards from the line of scrimmage, so 68%. 20 of 23. Oh, sorry. He attempted 23 passes, 5 yards or fewer from the line of scrimmage. On those 23 pass attempts, he was 20 of 23 for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. So 87% completion percentage. That is the highest percentage of Daniel Jones' career on those throws with a minimum 10 attempts. So he had the highest completion percentage of his career in Cleveland on throws 5 or fewer yards from the line of scrimmage, while completing 20 of 23 for 170 yards and 2 TDs. And like I said earlier, Dak Prescott could become the 4th quarterback ever to score 13 straight wins against the same opponent. He would be joining Bob Greasy, Steve Young, and Tom Brady if he does that. All right. Sorry to stumble through that stat there, though, but hopefully give you some insight on the Giants defense and offense and some of the standout performances there that they had in Cleveland, spinning forward to Dallas. Intel says Parson can't stop the run. Yeah, you need him to defend the run and not tee up and pin his ears back against the Giants in the passing game. All right, let's see. We got here. Danny Dudd says, how did the Giants get 2 Thursday games this year? Seems unfair. Unfair. I mean, I think there's a rotation of that, really, Danny. I mean, that goes around and comes around. I mean, really, it's not like the Giants are being targeted or whatever. And I did think, though, I will say this. I was surprised they got Thanksgiving again, because they just did Thanksgiving 2 years ago, right, in Dallas. Also, the Giants Cowboys can rate anytime. I feel like, don't they want to just put a random team against the Cowboys there so that it gets the monster Thanksgiving numbers regardless? And then you can put Giants Cowboys on somewhere else and get major ratings there. That can kind of confuse me. Shabari Moore, talking about the Brian Daboll, Devin Singletary situation, said just because he doesn't chastise a player publicly doesn't mean he isn't being coached hard. Right. No, that's for sure. For sure. Though what Daboll said really was, I don't need to do that with him because he knows. So he did, Shabari, in fairness, point out that essentially, like, he's a veteran. He knows. But I agree with you too. Like, that's what I was saying is Daboll just doesn't want to do that to players in general. He wants them to be on his side. He wants to be kind of the friendly pat on the back guy more so. And that's more his style when it comes to that type of thing. And so what he's doing there is trying to support Singletary rather than correct him in that public forum. But you're absolutely right. That doesn't tell us anything necessarily about what he clearly did behind the scenes. He could be correcting it more seriously behind the scenes. I would say this: you just want to make sure that you're handling everybody the same way across the board. And also, you have to reinforce it and hit it and hold people accountable, because you have to handle, like, if Tyrone Tracy has fumbling issues or Devin Singletary has fumbling issues, you need to handle those the same way. So if a guy doesn't get benched, this guy doesn't get benched for fumbling, you can't turn around and bench the next guy for fumbling, right? You have to be careful about handling it the same way. All right. Yes, I stumped you guys with that Caden Smith trivia. I know I did. Peter says, I expect the Cowboys to attack our secondary. How will we keep up with points? Peter, I don't think it's going to be, well, first of all, Malik Nabers, adds an element of explosiveness and unpredictability to this, right? He hasn't been a part of this rivalry yet. I would say the shallow cross to Malik Nabers, where they try to get him catch and running and getting him kind of turning up the sideline, they're definitely going to try to unleash him there. I think they'll also try to unleash him in those slot fades, the one that we saw Daniel Jones overthrow in the last game. Definitely expect them to try to run that back at some point. I do think an interesting unknown here is that Dan Quinn is no longer the DC. He's Washington's head coach, and now it's Mike Zimmer. Now, this is not the same defense that they faced in Minnesota a couple of years ago. Ed Donatel was the defensive coordinator calling the plays there when Daniel Jones went off against Minnesota. So it's not the same thing. But I do think Dan Quinn had Brian Daboll and the Giants in a blender, you know, kind of from a play calling standpoint and utilizing Dallas's personnel correctly. And so I think, you know, I'm not sure Zimmer is going to be as dangerous to handle as Dan Quinn was as a DC with Dallas. So that's one thing I'm interested in. Does that open up some opportunities? You guys are funny. Peter mentions that Hunter is over caffeinated because he keeps winning Estate 98. And Dave Z says, enjoy that Estate 98. It makes great iced coffee. Thank you for that endorsement, Dave. Remember, estate98.com/Talkin Ball for the special buy one, get one free deal. Let's see. Randy says, Hunter is an industry plant. No, I promise he's not. He is not. That's funny, though. Mo says, Daniel, continue playing like this. He's going to get better and finish the 4-year contract. Yeah, Tommy points out Nabers, first in NFL history to have 3 TDs and 20 receptions in first 3 games. Yes, Caden medically retired. Patrick believes that Okereke and Dexter Lawrence are locker room leaders. Barb, what's going on? Great to see you as always, Barb. Thanks for being here. A diehard Giants fan. Sorry, I saw the word Cowboys here. D Kit in the house says Cowboys are going to come in angry at the world. Yes, they are. They are cranky. A lot of talking by their leaders on defense about how it's not good enough. Intel doesn't think the Giants are going to win. 5,000 says to beat the Cowboys, 1, Giants coaches have to have a decent game plan, not the trash in the 40-0 home Dallas loss last year. 2, Daniel Jones needs good protection. And 3, Dak needs to get sacked by the Giants pass rush. Patrick, I think we talked about Simmons already. I think you might have just been asking this earlier to try to make sure it got in. But I don't expect him to start. I would think he's going to be more of a situationally used player in this game. Be interesting to see how often Bowen goes man versus zone. He obviously likes to play zone. I have questions about whether that'll be effective, though, with Dak. I think Dak loves to sit back and pick apart something where he knows where the windows are going to be. So I'm interested to see how they alternate that and then mix in a guy like Simmons on third down. I would use him as the third downs, blitzes, and then mix him in. There's a good chance that however they start with the slot, they're going to be rotating and mixing and matching. Frankly, I don't think Simmons seems like he's that big of a priority, though, in this scheme and in this team. I think he got on the field a lot last game due to injuries. D-Kid says the question is whether the Cowboys stack up to stop the run or don't respect the Giants running game enough to bring another guy down into the box. That is a good question schematically, whether they do that. Personally, I think they'll probably try to overcompensate early on the run just to make sure they stop it. But they can only go so far with that because they know how good Nabers is now. Like the secret's out. I mean, I know you have to see it in person sometimes to fully understand something, but I think they understand that they can't just leave him on an island over there. But that'll be interesting to see. If they go like cover 1, leave guys down in the box, go one-on-one with Nabers, with Diggs, and actually test that first. That could be a way that maybe the Giants catch them off guard. That'll be interesting to see. No Drew or Adoree. That's what I expect. No Drew Phillips or Adoree Jackson. That's what I expect. D-Kid says, I'm thinking Jones will be running more this game. I do as well, D-Kid. I think we're going to see a good amount of read option. I think Lamar Jackson, of course, is unique. He's a unicorn. But he ran the ball, I believe, like 14 times or something last week against Dallas. Some of those pulls on the read option really had Parsons and the Cowboys looking confused. So I do think that will be a big part of this game as well, Daniel Jones's legs. Peter thinks that the Giants will have to throw the ball to win, and Dallas will exploit the Giants' secondary. D-Kid says, you would think, Peter, but I have a feeling that Jones is going to run early in the game. I do think you're going to see a lot of that. But I think that the Giants need to be able to run the ball to control the game. If the Dallas Cowboys end up with a lot of possessions, it could get ugly. Like, they're a good enough offense where if you give them the ball, I don't know, if they have 10 possessions, let's say, or 12 possessions or whatever it is, and you keep giving them the ball back, it'll be over fast and they will score 40 points or 35 points. That's just the kind of offense they are. You have to limit their amount of possessions. You have to keep it more to 7, 8 rather than 10, 11, 12. The Miz, what's up? The Miz always checking in. Appreciate you, Miz. With the pending tropical storm coming, weather could hamper Dallas's pass. Yeah, it's which would be a huge advantage for the Giants. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think the weather, I'm curious about that. It looks like it's going to be very humid for that game. It does not look like it's going to be raining. Rain percentage chance right now, at least, is under 40% at that time. Might see some drizzles, or we could see it evolve. So I'm going to continue to follow that too, Miz. That's interesting. Miz says, do we have a kicker yet? So interestingly enough, one day after Daboll made it sound like he wasn't certain who his kicker would be, he did declare Greg Joseph is the kicker for Thursday night. So they did commit 3 weeks salary to Greg Joseph by signing him off the Detroit Lions practice squad. So they're going to make use of that and keep him as their kicker for now. And Miz, to your point, great point, but I brought this up earlier. Another potential key to the game. I mean, hopefully it's close enough for this to matter, but potential key to the game, Brandon Aubrey, 10 for 10 so far this season for Dallas, the former Notre Dame soccer standout. He has hit 5 of 5 from 50 plus already. So he has hit 7 of his 10 kicks have been from 46 or more. 5 of 10 have been from 50 or more. So he's hit from 46, 48, 50, 51, 52, 57, and 65. Meanwhile, Greg Joseph still getting his legs under him as a Giant. Missed a 48-yard field goal last week in Cleveland, almost contributed to costing the Giants that game. So that'll be a key, no doubt about it. Hunter says, in all fairness, the Giants would be closer to 18 or so if they had a kicker week 2. Left 8 points on the board from field goals and extra points. Part of the management of the team that needs to improve and get better. Not good enough. Barb says there will be rain early that day, not at game time. And Peter says no wind. Hunter says, I like the 2 Monday night games. Wish they had more prime time, to be honest. I do like primetime games. The 2 really depends to me on what the games are. I mean, if both games are good, it gets tough. Last night, the Monday night games, I liked it because Buffalo-Jacksonville was interesting in the first half for a time. Then the game got away from them, so I didn't feel like I was missing anything when I switched over to watch a better game in Washington, Cincinnati. But if both games are good, then it becomes tougher. Hooks says if they signed a tight end to the practice squad, who did they cut? Well, they signed a tight end to the practice squad, so they placed Lawrence Cager on injured reserve. That was the corresponding move there. So they placed Lawrence Cager on injured reserve. A2Z Me is late to the party. He says, what did I miss? Did we have a tight end yet? They signed Joel Wilson, a tight end, most recently the Green Bay Packers. A2Z Me. Just a practice squatter, though. Daboll indicated that this is more about having bodies for a scout team than anything. So he would not reveal that it's, a reflection of their current tight ends. He said he likes how their tight ends are playing. So we'll see. But obviously they need more from the tight ends on the active roster as well. You got it. Hooks Rubs, you got it. Let's see. Thank you to everybody being here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard on the Believe Network, on the YouTube channel PL on NFL. Thanks for listening. If you're on audio, Spotify, Apple, wherever the case is, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the community. Wherever you are, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, please review us, leave comments, rate us, hit those 5 stars if you love what we're doing on the audio form. Please leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please hit the like button while you are here, while we are live. If you hit the like button, that helps a lot. It drives engagement, tells the algorithm people are enjoying their time here. And if you don't subscribe already, please subscribe to the channel. Have a lot of Giants content and NFL content on the way, and that continues to come your way throughout the season. We have guests on the show. We have First Down with Benny Fowler every week, breaking down the league's games. We have Talkin Ball live 3 times a week, including after Giants games, home and away. After I come out of the locker room, to bring you the latest news and updates there. Love what we're doing here. Love the community. And thank you, everybody, for what you do as loyal fans and listeners and viewers. D Kid says, is Jason Pinnock rising to become a leader on this team? He's definitely acting like it, D. If he can, make an interception here or there and help continue to contribute to victories, they ought to go a long way there. He's definitely comfortable in his own skin. He's likable. His teammates like him and respect him. He's a hard worker. And they're definitely asking a lot out of him. And it looks like he is emotionally and, stature-wise rising to that challenge. So yes, I would agree with that. I do think he's stepping into one of those roles. Dave G says, hey, Pat, what's going on with the Hyatt situation? Seems to me, Dave G, like a lot of window dressing in the same old. What I mean by that is they gave him the start against Cleveland. So his name is listed as one of the starters in that game. And they took a deep shot to him on the second drive and the ball fell incomplete. But all told, he only played 10 snaps in the game. So not utilized, not prioritized in the scheme. And, his frustrations that came out last week, very real, something that, is, this is a receiver who it's like keeping the Ferrari in the driveway. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it's like. So it's something to continue to monitor. The Simmons situation, the Hyatt situation, these are situations to monitor. Tommy says, have to take from Saints game plan and install it in the play calling, dominating the trenches. The Giants way is the only way moving forward. Yeah, not a bad idea. Is to look at what teams have done and then try to replicate that. If you see weaknesses you can exploit. You don't want to be cookie cutter though, because also remember the Cowboys are looking at those tapes and correcting mistakes off of that as well. But you're right. Usually that type of stuff reveals trends about how you can attack a defense and a team. Hunter, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Hunter says, what was Derwin James's suspension for? It was for a hit to the head. So Derwin James, so basically the exact wording was they suspended him 1 game without pay for repeated violations of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players. So it included a hit he had on Pat Freiermuth, the Steelers tight end. It was a hit to the head. It was in the Steelers-Chargers game. Obviously, Steelers improved to 3-0 in that game. So what John Runyon, so the father of John Runyon Jr., the Giants guard, he's the VP of football operations, and he said in his note or his letter to James and telling him about the suspension, it said that during the third quarter of that game, he committed a serious violation of playing rules. It says, you lowered your head and made forcible contact to Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth. You had an unobstructed path to your opponent, and the illegal contact could have been avoided. Your continued disregard for NFL playing rules will not be tolerated. Substantial penalties are warranted when players violate rules intended to protect player safety on a repeated basis, particularly when the violations carry with them significant risk of injury to an opposing player. So basically, this was something that the NFL made players aware of coming into the season, particularly those repeat offenders, as they call them. And so those players, guys like James, they knew if they were to incur a serious infraction again, that this type of thing could be coming. And so James got it. So that's what happened. I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Hunter says, now that we are 3 weeks into the season, has Danny said how his knee is feeling any pain, or is he 100%? There's been no talk of that. Jones has not shown any signs that his knee is an issue and has not been even discussed really in recent weeks. So as far as I'm concerned, Hunter, it's 100%, and he's ready to rock and he's ready to run, I think is what you're asking about too. He is capable of doing the kind of running that you may need in a game like this. Hunter says he likes more primetime games because it means fewer paywall games like on Sunday Ticket. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices says, would love to see them run Hyatt on a jet sweep or wide receiver screen or something. Feels like he hasn't gotten much opportunity to show anything this season yet, or even a reverse. I agree. Joe says, Pat, is there anything to Hyatt's alleged comments during camp? Sounds like it was a heat of the moment type thing, saying if they won't use me, why don't they just trade me? It is true. He did say that in the heat of the moment at practice, that is all true. It the way that it's being treated like it's nothing, that is not accurate. I mean, this was an issue that was discussed internally. And also it came out for a reason. It came out at the time where, I think that Jalen Hyatt, from my vantage point, this is a player who, while he said all the right things in that interview, this is a player who is not interested in sitting on the bench, who wants to be used, who wants to contribute. So that's how I see it. I also felt like the way that the Giants had it all kind of come out and then shoot it down, it all kind of added up to, hey, like sometimes if you have an issue, and listen, I'm not blaming the Giants, for leaning into it a little bit, because this is what teams have to do. I'm just kind of pointing out the way I see it. Sometimes you have an issue like this. It's like, okay, is it time maybe for, instead of like trying to trade him, maybe we kind of throw up a flare or some smoke out into the sky and let everybody know, hey, here's a guy who might be available if you give us a call. Like sometimes that happens as well. Hook says, I understand Hyatt's frustration. D-Kid says, hey, Pat, is it true that the Giants haven't sacked a Cowboys quarterback since December 19th, 2021? Please tell me I'm being gaslit. Yeah, apparently they haven't sacked Dak Prescott in the last 4 meetings, I think is what it was, right? Or I guess they haven't sacked a Dallas quarterback in the last 4 meetings. I did not look up that stat myself. I can do it for you right now here while we're at it. So let's see. Last season, they played in week 1, and the Giants had no sacks. Then they played in week 10. I can pretty much guarantee you they had no sacks in that game. It was a total disaster. No sacks in that game. Okay. Then they played in 2022. They played in week 3. And the Giants defense had no sacks. Then they played in week 12. And what do you know? The Giants defense had no sacks. So the last 4 games, they don't have a sack. So let's see. Their second meeting in 2021, a loss in week 15. See if they had a sack in that game. Yes, they had 3 sacks in that game. It was 2 by Lorenzo Carter and a half sack each by Azeez Ojulari and Quincy Roche. Those are some names right there. Zoe Carter, 2 sacks in 2021. So yeah, since their final meeting in 2021. So the last 4 meetings with the Cowboys, they don't have a sack on the quarterback. So that means 2 games against Dak and a game each against Andy Dalton and Cooper Rush. Yeah. Oh, no, Andy Dalton was 2020. So that was 3 against Dak and 1 against Cooper Rush. All right. Let's see. D-Kid says, Pat, how do we explain the apparent 180-degree defensive game plan from Washington to Cleveland? Seems like the scheme was a little bit out of character for Bowen. Definitely believe that this was an all-hands-on-deck situation. I'm sure Brian Daboll got involved in some form, I would think, in the way that they attacked Cleveland there. It was definitely this isn't good enough. Let's rip it up and change it up type deal. So it wouldn't surprise me if Brian Daboll was involved in that, even from just a broad strokes, mandate standpoint to add some pressures in, let's see. They're going to have to prove that they can be that malleable and that versatile and that kind of unpredictable every week now, because it was out of character for Bowen's defense. Tommy says the offense is gaining momentum. No need to stop the downfield plays, but add to them with Slayton, Hyatt. That speed is untouched. Can't believe Daboll hasn't utilized the full weaponry. Hunter says, are Lorenzo and Quincy still in the NFL? Lorenzo Carter is on the Falcons. Quincy Roche, I believe, is a free agent at the moment. He's bounced back and forth on like practice squads and training camps and stuff. Hooks says, wasn't that the 2021 Dallas game that Tony went crazy and then went really crazy? That the 2021 crazy Tony game was week 5. The game that they had sacks last was in week 15. So that was a different game. But yes, that was a memorable Kadarius Toney performance there. Hunter says, also, what happened to that Dartmouth college kid that played a few games for us? Wow, blast from the past. What was his name again? Struggling to remember there. Guys, thank you so much for another great live chat here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. Brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie is #1 place for sports bettors. 10th year anniversary. Sign up today. Use the promo code Pat's Picks. Click on the link in all of my profiles or bios on social media. You click on that link and enter Pat's Picks, the promo code, and you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. They have risk-free Thursdays. You can bet plenty of fun player props, overs and unders, futures as well. And they have a lot of fun games that you see me kind of promoting on my social media. Go look at my Instagram account every week. There's different games for you to access and play and win. So this football season, make it my bookie for your winning, for your cash in your account. If you're already a user, sign up for their new loyalty rewards program, My Bookie Plus. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with My Bookie. Also brought to you by State 98 Coffee. It's an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. Go to estate98.com/talkinball for a special buy one, get one free deal. Takes less than 10 seconds to make an iced coffee, and it's delicious, as David alluded to. Also brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today and place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Again, boomchaga.com, subscribe and save option, buy a bag, use Talkin Ball 25. Then you can cancel the subscription if you want. You don't have to stick around. You're not obligated to do that. But let's see. Let's get our last questions in before we sign off here on another episode of Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. This is a special Tuesday episode because we have the Thursday night game. We will be live post-game after the Giants game against the Cowboys. Probably do a quick, 30 minutes, 45 minutes post-game since it'll be really late. But we will go live after Giants Cowboys to get you the latest from the locker room. And also for the audio listeners, you will wake up having a nice breakdown right from the stadium after I come out of the locker room of the Giants game against Dallas. Nico Lelos, that's what his name was. Wow, blast from the past. Tommy says Azeez needs more reps per game. He is underrated, and Bobby has to get more solo tackles. Too many assists this season. He must elevate the tackling, and Chapman is a gem, baby Hulk for real. You need Chapman consistency. It's hard to expect a lot from an undrafted rookie. Anything you get from him is a bonus. He had a really good showing in Cleveland. You want to see that continue. Azeez, I agree, more reps. Great to see Azeez succeed and thrive in Cleveland. You want to see him back it up. Definitely Kayvon Thibodeau is not a player who is making a lot of splashes right now. Give Azeez more run. Let him make some plays there. Bobby was blitzing more in last game. That's part of the reason why he wasn't back there, but he had a bad game against Washington, so you do want to see him bounce back at inside linebacker for sure. D-Kit says, Pat, it doesn't get any easier for Andrew Thomas this week with Parsons. Not used to seeing him get handled so badly, but it was Garrett, and he's freaking incredible. Yeah, Myles Garrett is incredible. Andrew Thomas owned it. He said he didn't play well at all. It will be harder or will be a challenge again this week. Different type of challenge, different rusher and Micah Parsons. And Parsons does move around, so it'll be back and forth. But for sure. By the way, I asked Andrew Thomas about his left ankle. He said, he told me after the game he got rolled up on. He said that initially it was kind of scary. It is that same ankle he's had repaired twice, the left ankle, and you just never know when it happens what it's going to be. But he said no worse for wear. He feels okay. Tommy says, glad Pat gave the boom chaga to the locker room. It showed last game. Make sure you give it to them for the next game. They will need it. No doubt. Let's get some boom chaga to the players. G-Man says, what's up, Pat? Big game Thursday. Tomorrow, will the position coaches and coordinators talk or both? G-Man, unfortunately, there's no availability tomorrow because it's essentially a Saturday for a Sunday game. So Wednesday, no availability. So I will have plenty more on New York Daily News website, though. Go and check out my stories now, including one on Deontay Banks, where he told me he played like shit in Cleveland. That is straight from Deontay Banks' mouth. But he gave me good context on what happened in the game and why he's still confident. You guys should check that out there. Guys, this has been a great episode. Thank you for tuning in, as always, here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard on the Believe Network and on YouTube. Signing off. See you Thursday night. And as I said, as Dak Prescott always says, here we go. Big game for the Giants in week 4. See you there.